in which our society has been created and cultivated over 400 years on anti-blackness and anti-indigeneity, we can't come together because white people.
I look at black people and brown people as equal to me.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. You can, again, individual, right? Like, we're not talking about the individual person. We're talking about macro level systems of oppression. So, like, if we can't address and say that these systems exist, that no black people aren't viewed in society as a whole as equal, we can't have an opportunity to even come together and move forward.
But it's the government that is upholding these systems and things of that nature.
You know what I realized? It's not, though. Because the government is made up of who?
What do you mean the government is? Not really, though.
It's made up of the people, right? We live in a representative democracy, okay? Arguably little with hints of a republic for real, because of the Constitution and shit, right? And so, like, there are people.
The problem is that we elect people that go in there, but the problem is that because we're so entrenched in this two-party system, right? Even if I don't agree with something that somebody in my state does and they're a Republican, I have the ability to fire him, right? I could do something with a recall or whatever the case is, or I could vote him out and enforce the term limit, because technically they do have term limits. But the problem is because we live in a two-party system, we're not going to give up majority. So they're going to stay in power as long as nobody goes up to oppose them. And that's the system that we're in. And that's the problem, is that we're in this rut where we are so beholden to a two-party system that we're not going to check them.
Do you know what the difference between perspective and perception is?
The what?
Do you know what the difference between perspective and perception is?
Yeah, perspective is something that you've already experienced. And so therefore it's something that is a lived experience, as to where perception is something that you see or you think. It's not necessarily something you've gone through.
I would say perspective or perception is how you view the world, right?
Right.
And perspective is viewing the world outside of your body, okay?
Well, perspective is based off of what you've experienced, really. You don't gain perspective without living it.
And then looking outside your body and how things move and operate, right? And so a problem I see a lot of time with white people, they only look at things through perception, how they perceive the world, right? So what you're saying in regards to your lived experiences isn't wrong, because those are your lived experiences. But you won't understand where I'm coming from until you give things perspective outside of your body. Because these things affect you, and you're talking about things that absolutely affect you. Sure, I'm not going to deny like the things that white people experience, especially when we're talking about like systems of oppression, right? But when we're talking about these things, right, there are certain systems that affect black and brown people that don't affect white people, you know? And so, like, we're not going to acknowledge that. This is what I'm saying. It's going to be difficult to come together because, like, we're not acknowledging, like, each other as individuals. Well, white people aren't acknowledging black people. And you see that phenomenon not just with black and white people, but just in power dynamics as a whole.
Yeah, like, but the problem is, Liv, is we're going to keep going round and round as long as we're still beholden to the same system. Then once we can fix and correct that system, then we can work together to figure it out. But I mean, like I said, there's nothing that we're going to be able to do. You guys are going to sit here and keep complaining. We're going to sit here and keep complaining.
We're just pointing out.
At the end of the day, that's all it really is. Because talking about things without having any action is just complaining. And we're not going to be able to have any action if we continue to stay divided.
Do you think that black people, or like black people on this app, are like doing these things and having these conversations because, like, you know, we want to complain? Because you said that word.
Well, not necessarily that. I'm just saying you can't sit here and complain about oppression and complain where there's all these systems in place, but you're not willing to do anything to correct the situation, and that's the issue. Right? Because there has to be some sort of solution. But listen, this is what I'll tell you. There's absolutely no way that the solution will ever be that you're going to run around and tell white people that they're racist or that they're inherently racist or that they should apologize for being white or whatever the case is, or we should apologize for shit that happened that we had absolutely zero control or part in, right? You're not going to get people on your side that way. And that's like the main thing. Liv, I think you're super, super smart. And I think that you have the ability to teach. And I think that you have the ability to be able to have conversations, but you're not going to guilt white people into helping you.
You know what
That's just not going to happen.
You know what the interesting piece about white guilt is?
Well, I don't have it, so I don't know what's interesting about it. I think it's pathetic.
I think white guilt is a very interesting phenomenon, right? Because instead of looking at the material conditions that have been created by whiteness and white people, right? The response from white people is to look at the conversation as the problem, right? So instead of looking at like for example, black power.